I am the Bard of Blood.
Bard of Blood.
God has given you one face. And you make yourselves another.
Get Adonis for me.
Adonis का असली नाम?
Kabir Anand.
To start off with, I think Bilal is a young, upcoming new writer. So I've read some of his work, and I get very enticed and excited by young talent which goes out in the world and writes a book, etc.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here and to have the opportunity to talk to three of our authors today, Vikram Chandra, Hussain Zaidi, and Bilal Siddiqui. I think this is the first time that, three of our best-selling authors are coming together. And it's an honor for me to publish, all of them. So I think this is a very, very special conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. We've also, published Bilal's new book, his fourth book recently called The Phoenix, and it's out in the market. We are very excited. Congratulations, Bilal.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. How does it feel, coming out with a new book? And The Phoenix is, in a zone that, you like writing about. So tell us a bit more about your new book and how did it happen?
First of all, thank you all for making time and doing this. It means a lot, and your support with two of my literary heroes and a publishing giant like Penguin with Millie on board. It really means a lot to have you all spend this time doing it this way. And as for how it feels really special. It feels just like the first time when I had Bard of Blood. It still feels the same when I hold my work to see it materialize and published as a book. I don't think there are like words that could specifically encapsulate what I'm completely feeling, but it does feel really great to see that the journey of writing the book from an idea in your head to holding it can really make you feel special. So this is one of those feelings.
Can you show us the book, Bilal?
I can.
Oh.
I always hold it.
Yes.
Have it by my side. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Thank you for
I
doing
must.
this, and it wouldn't be possible without you and Hussain sir.
Yes, so Hussain, you've mentored so many writers in the past few years. You have an imprint with Penguin called Blue Salt. How did this whole journey with Blue Salt begin, and when and how did Bilal become a part of it?
Actually, Bilal was among the first who became part of Blue Salt, and but somehow it was Neeraj Pandey, the noted film director, who came out with his book first. So it was those days Bilal was still writing his book. In fact, Bilal went through a lot of tests before he managed to finish his first manuscript. The editors at Penguin were not very sure if Bilal could do his book. So first they asked for a synopsis, then they asked for a few chapters, then said, can they give half the book so that we can be confident that the boy can really crack the book as nicely as he suggested. So Bilal went through all those hurdles very bravely, and he managed to bring this Bard of Blood. And that book, oh God, that was a fantastic one. I mean, Shah Rukh loved the book. Red Chillies produced a Netflix series on it. And, it's one of the successful series on Netflix. And where Bilal became such a big star that now he's one of those also who I can't even get to when I want to be in touch with him. So we have a couple of secretaries in between now to get in touch with Mr. Bilal Siddiqui. That's how great a name he has become.
Well, I don't believe that, Hussain, not at all, because, I know how much Bilal looks up to you. He's, learned so much from you and grown under your wings. So, I know both of us love to, pull his leg once in a while, and you know that, Bilal. But, Vikram, we're talking about, books getting adapted into, films and web series. And one of the biggest series that was launched in India was Sacred Games, a novel that you'd written years back. So how was the whole experience, and would you like to share, your thoughts on it?
Well, mine took a very long time. So the book had come out in 2005, 6, and then as actually little before it had come out, these people in the West, they have these scouts who are looking at books that are about to be published. And a couple of them got in touch with my agent. And then I ended up meeting with somebody from a big company, a film production company in Hollywood. And they said they wanted to make a movie out of it. And I said, you guys are crazy. Even if your movie is 3 hours long, how are you going to fit this entire book in there? And they wanted to try. So I said, okay, have a go. And they tried to get a screenplay written for a couple of years. And finally, the screenwriter threw up his hands and said, no, anyway, it didn't end up getting made. So I think much later, 10 years after that, another producer saw it. And then we spent a lot of time doing the rounds in Hollywood. We were in development with AMC for a couple of years. So, I mean, getting something made into a film can be an endless process. It takes years and years and years. And then finally, during that whole thing, I had met some people at Netflix, and they came back, and then we had a meeting with them. Vikramaditya Motwane was in LA, so we all met together there, and then it suddenly came together, right? So what happens is, for years, nothing will happen, and then suddenly everything, all the pieces will fall in the right place, and there you are. So I would say, as a writer of fiction, you shouldn't at all dream of that. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, then you shouldn't be disappointed, because it's like a lot of dice have to roll your way for something like that to come about.
Yes, I think that's proven true in so many cases. Hussain, you've known Vikram for years, and your association goes back to, I think, decades. How did you both first meet? And tell us a few things that we might not know about Vikram.
October 1997.
Yeah,
we met.
That's very accurate. You look it up in your diary?
No, I didn't.
But there's conflict over the location.
Yeah. No, but I remember correctly that first time we met was in Oberoi coffee shop. So, but because we had multiple meetings after that, and that's why Vikram is confused whether we met someone in suburb. But we had first meeting in Oberoi coffee shop, and we kind of lost track of time. Vikram's conversation was, so full of insights and enlightenment that I forgot that I had a deadline. I was a reporter. I had to get to office before 8 o'clock, and I have to go and file a story. So it was only around 8:30, 8:40 when I noticed the time. I realized, oh God, I have 2 stories to file, and I'm still not in the office. So then I had to really apologize to Vikram, but I realized we spent more than 2 hours in that first meeting. And then after that, we met several times, and I realized that Vikram is actually a university in his own self. You can learn so much. He's like, you can learn not just language, narrative skills, storytelling, plot development, the art of research, the way a book should be organized, the way you should absorb detail. I can go on for half an hour, what all courses you can have in this university called Vikram Chandra. So I realized that the learning process never stops after, I think, 23 years of association.
Hussain is being very complimentary, being very generous.
I am being matter of fact. And Bilal knows that I don't praise everyone and anyone that way. So I am that way very stingy with my compliments and observations.
No, absolutely. I think, we all know that, Vikram, of course. Vikram, you are too humble. So, others have to speak for you. So we don't have an option. But I think...
No, I will say that I felt the same way about Hussain, right? Like, he's an encyclopedia of his own, and I still rely on it, right? Like, if I'm trying to remember, I need some information about some crime thing that happened like 22 years ago. I just have to ask him, and then he'll remember it. Although I will say that I think his memory of Oberoi is faulty, because I lived in Lokhandwala at that time. And we met in Juhu in some outdoor coffee shop, right? So actually, this is illustrative also of like how in crime cases this is especially important, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Memory.
Why I remember Oberoi is because I was complacent that it's only hop, skip, and jump to my office across the road. So which is why I agreed to meet that place and that time, because I was also getting tense about the deadline. And I know that I didn't have to travel in some cab or rickshaw to reach my office. I mean, the moment
No.
I
See,
met
I'll tell
you,
you.
I dashed to my office and I was on my computer.
My version of the story is that I did one of those things where you're on your way to work at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Right?
So that must be, I think, second or third meeting, Vikram.
That I think the Oberoi meeting was later. But what I was saying was this demonstrates like how faulty memory can be, right? So when you put a witness on in a courtroom and they say, I remember this for sure 100%, often that memory is off, right? I mean, no matter how intelligent they are, they claim they have a very good memory, but you can never be sure of these things.
No, but we are seeing this right now, play out. So this is a perfect example. There are like different versions of the same event. How did you two meet? And both of you have a little. I mean, your stories are different, right?
Yeah,
No, the journalists are very rigid and they're very non-compromising. So even if their story is proven to be faulty and wrong, they say we stand by our story. I will say I stand by my version. I will say that.
Yeah. No, I think that is completely. I mean, we're seeing this happen right now.
Yeah.
And that brings me, Hussain, to writing thrillers and what you've done in your career. You've written fiction, non-fiction. So if I were to ask you what is it that how do you start the whole process of writing a thriller, and what is the point when you say, okay, like I think there's a book here and this is something that I want to write about?
Shouldn't we be asking Bilal Siddiqui as well this question, because he's in third thriller and I think it's more for the release of his book Phoenix. So let him answer this question first and then I come to that.
Sure, why not? I think anybody can take it.
No, Bilal is, I think, the youngest among all three of us. So
Bilal, why don't you
give
us some insights into plotting a thriller?
A lot of what I've learned actually is from Hussain sir himself. Started assisting him, I think, when I was 18. We were in college and we were students of advertising and journalism. And he had come to deliver a lecture on journalism. And his new book that time had just come out, maybe a year before that, Dumri to Dubai. And I read it and I was a big fan because I read his previous works as well. And by the end of the lecture, he just wanted to assemble a team to, help him out with the research of his next 3 odd books that he was doing at that point. And along the course of assisting or helping him out in whatever capacity we could, I picked up a lot of things that helped me in my own writing process. One of those being that always find a setting and a premise that is unique, because also the kind of writing I wanted to get into was fiction and thrillers, unlike the non-fiction journalistic kind of books that Hussain sir is famous for. So seeing him approach those books versus also approach a fiction story, which I think at that point was the first fiction book he was working on, just helped me realize the two different distinct forms of writing. And so from him, I kind of imbibed that if you have an interesting enough setting and a premise, and if you feel it has the legs to carry a book over 250 at least pages, then you should spend some time and develop characters that can be interesting to see in that setting and premise. And always been a fan of the espionage genre myself, because it's just one of those things that I always gravitated towards in terms of watching, reading, and even in a non-fiction way, reading. So I just thought that this would be an interesting premise, and I'd actually pitched it to Hussain sir. And he was kind enough to, facilitate that with Penguin. So I've been lucky in that form. Right place, right time, and the right guidance. But as I'm writing further, I'm learning that there's so much more to do with every piece of work that you kind of, put out there. So with Bard to Phoenix now, for this is my 4th book, I'm feeling that I'm improving, but I know that I'm not 100% there yet. And that I will continue to work towards by seeing how Hussain sir approaches work, or by reading books like Vikram sir's books and all. You just learn so much when you analyze it as a writer. So it's one of those things. It's just that the setting, the premise, and the characters need to excite. And then if you have it in you to be committed to that at least for a year and a half, only then you should start writing it, I feel. Does that sum up?
Yeah, I know, of
a
course.
bit of my process.
Yeah, and I know that you write, you like writing espionage stories. We saw that with Bard of Blood and now with the Phoenix. And tell us a bit about, the whole experience of, Bard of Blood being, a Netflix series. And how was it? You were so young still. Did it change your life as a writer? What
It did
does it?
actually.
Yeah.
It's a point actually that I'd like to start from what Vikram sir said, is that it's one of those things that if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, and you think about it, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. So I've been extremely lucky, obviously, to have the guidance of a censor to get that book published, and then of course, Red Chillies taking over and creating a pitch, and then having Netflix excited enough to come on board and have it on their service. So it all felt so surreal, because obviously when I sat down writing just those sample chapters for Censor back then, back in 2014 or 15, I never imagined that people across the globe, whatever number they are, would end up watching a visual version of the story. So yes, the process obviously varies, because it depends on the format. So a book, of course, is so much more different than a show, because it's a visual way of telling the same story. So you can't obviously delve into a character's mind the way you would on a page. And it's just a few fundamental differences that I learned along the way that exist between writing for reading purposes and writing for people who want to watch. So yeah, it's screenwriting versus novelistic writing, so to speak. And a bunch of like screenwriting's main role is show don't tell, but rule, sorry, is show don't tell. And in books is actually tell it the best possible way so someone can see it in their minds, right? So that's something that I still I'm trying to grapple with, but it's definitely been a great experience to see it up close, the visual translation of a book.
Yeah. Hussein, you've of course been writing for films, and I think amongst all three of you, I think you had the most experience in this particular, thing. So how would you like sort of, kind of see this whole experience of books being translated into films or series? Are these different? What does it do to a writer? How does a writer keep on, writing good stories even after that? Because it all starts from a book, right? That's how I think that first comes the book. And then, of course, if it has, it can translate into other mediums, and it can, be seen or, adapted into various other platforms. It can be done, but it starts from the, from the mind of the writer, and then the book, and then, various other platforms. So how has that experience been for you? And would you like to, share some tips for, budding writers?
See, I think that Bollywood is a content-starved industry. They are trying to always forage for some kind of interesting stories and some kind of interesting plots and books, which will ensure that they can have a good story to tell or show it to the audience. So when I was writing those books, crime stories, I did not at that time aspire that these will get adapted into some series or some movies. It was much later that when I had done this Black Friday and Don't Dubai and Mafia Queen that I discovered that how Bollywood is so fascinated with the crime stories. So I think that all these budding writers or this aspiring screenwriters should try to look for some non-fiction, because these days Bollywood is totally obsessed with non-fiction stories. Even if it's about a gangster, even if it's a cop investigation or whatever, but the movie industry wants non-fiction stories. So I would say that those who want their work to be surely adapted should try to focus on non-fiction, A. B, they should always go for original content. And C, their research should be so solid that whoever reads it should have a very vivid and graphic imagination of the story that has been told in those pages. So if anyone who takes note of these 3 points will, I think, definitely see his work getting adapted by the Bollywood moguls and those who are adapting to series or movies.
Yeah, I think these are very useful tips, Hussein. Vikram, you recently launched Granthika, and I think it's a great way to sort of use your skills and insights into the craft of writing and making writing easier for others with the tools that it offers. Would you like to share a bit more about Granthika with all of us, all our viewers today?
Sure. So it started out a long time back when I was starting Sacred Games. That was my third book. And by that time, I'd already become really frustrated with the tools that are available to writers of books. Right. So if you're writing in a word processor like Word, you have your manuscript. And then, but you have to keep track of events, right? A timeline. This happened in 1989. This happened in 2015, right? So many writers have, they use hand-drawn timelines on the wall. Then, as you can see, I do a lot of research and I keep notes, right? So at the beginning, I was keeping notes in notebooks, and then I started to keep them on my computer in a note-taking program. But when you're writing, suddenly in the middle of the book, and this happened to me yesterday on the fiction I'm working on now, I knew I had taken some notes years back about the way that people worship goddesses in Andhra Pradesh, right? And so I wanted to fact check something, right? So now suddenly I'm doing searches in my note-taking program, and I'm entering Andhra Pradesh, goddess, and I can't find the specific note, right? And it ended up taking me half an hour to find that one stupid thing, right? Which was very important to me. So I've been thinking about this for years. And so what we've done is we've created software called Granthika, in which all of your manuscript and your notes and your timeline are all kept next to each other, right? In the same program. So when you're writing, if you're on a word goddess, you can do one click and jump to the place where you've taken the notes about that specific thing, right? Or about the specific event. And then with one click, you jump right back, right? So it's making my mornings of writing a lot easier and happier. And then, we've added various things. You can, we are using natural language recognition. So if you write 3 paragraphs this morning, you highlight them and you say analyze, and it'll find all the characters that we've talked about. If they're already existing in your database, it will link them with your manuscript. If it finds new ones, it'll say, is this a character? Is this a place? And you can say yes. And then it'll create a page for each of those, right? And then, we're planning to add more and more features fairly quickly as time goes on. Like, so when you're writing, you have a table of contents in your head, right? Like when you're at the beginning of a book, right? Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And so with Granthika, you can move those around very easily, or scenes or whatever you're using. But then also often you want to use a board view, right? Where you have like index cards of the chapters and scenes and see it in that way. So you can see the structure of your novel in different ways. All kinds of analyses, right, that you can apply. And all these tools are intended to help writers, right? To make your writing life easier so you can concentrate on the writing and not so much on the logistics. And then I think we're doing a new release in the next week or two. We've added the ability to write in 9 Indian scripts. So Devanagari, Telugu Lipi, and so on and so on. So that's very exciting for me because then people who work in other languages can also work in Granthika.
Nice. No, it sounds fascinating. I think, it just sounds very useful and practical because, we all talked about research right now, right? Like how important is research for writing a good book? The little details can make a huge difference. It adds originality and it makes the whole, scene or picture come alive.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to add that we have a free subscription for anybody who's a student or an educator at any level, because that's one segment that we are very interested in. Because you can use, what we are hoping to do is that we can make it easier to teach writing as well. right? So for both angles, from the writing point of view and also from the instruction point of view. So if people are interested, they should go and check it out.
Interesting. So Bilal, do you still qualify? Are you still a student? You look
I'm
like
always a student, especially in this chat. I'll always remain a student, with y'all around. Just so much to learn from, and I need to download it ASAP.
Yes, yeah. I think I'm also quite tempted, and I've been talking Vikram about it to some friends, and I think it could be a game changer for a lot of people. Hussein, you've partnered with Vikram, and you both have mentored so many people over the years, and now you are part of I think a crime festival that you'll judge, and you will try and find budding writers. So how did it come about, and would you share some more details about this initiative with Pratilipi?
Well, I think that for Pratilipi, the credit should go to Kashif Mashaik. Kashif is not here today, but it was he who got talking to some people at Pratilipi, and they both came up with this fantastic idea because Pratilipi has a huge database of aspiring writers and authors, and they wanted someone to mentor them and teach them. So they proposed the idea to Kashif, and then Kashif approached me and Vikram both and suggested this idea. And he said that we have to judge a few stories and we have to mentor some people in, a few lectures on writing skills, basic writing skills. So we thought it was a fascinating idea, and then we both agreed to it, and that's how the 3P thing happened.
Yeah, and I should say we've been talking about this for many years, right?
Mm.
And somehow, I mean, the idea of teaching and discussing, doing a series of lectures about writing, and then it never worked out. Partly because of me, I teach here in Berkeley in California, so I come to India in the summers and winters. Just like dates didn't work out, and then finding a physical space in Bombay to actually hold classes, that's another whole epic story that you need to then engage with. So now, because the technology is making this possible, it becomes much easier to do that kind of thing. And I think especially since the lockdown, people on the other end are much more used to participating in classes and discussions in that manner.
Yes, I think it's changed so many things in various ways, and it'll continue. I think these changes are not going to go away with the virus. I think there are a lot of learnings, and there are things that will continue. We all are looking at new ways of working, office spaces, working from home, studying from home. There's so many online classes, and actually people are finding those useful as well. So I think there's a great opportunity to sort of, I think make use of new technology to actually enhance your skills and try something new. So good luck to both of you. I'm sure this will be fantastic and very, very useful for a lot of writers who might need guidance, help. I think we all in a way have been lucky to find mentors at the right time, and I think we all know that does make a difference in our lives and careers. So I hope this also brings change in a lot of people's lives, and good luck to both of you. Before we end this conversation, there's so many things I want to ask, because this is a rare opportunity. I think I feel very privileged to have all three of you, on the same platform. And I asked Hussein this, but Vikram, what according to you, are the things that aspiring writers should keep in mind, things that they should not do or do, according to you, when they're starting out?
Well, I think Kashif already hinted at one thing. He said, if you have it in you to write for a year or two, I have seemed to publish once every 10 years. So with me, it's a little longer. But I would say having discipline is the main thing, right? And what I mean by that is, I know it's very hard, but if you set aside certain hours every week, even if it's 1 hour, 2 hours, where you show up at your desk and you just sit there, even if nothing is occurring to you that day, you just show up and you work, right? And one day, amazingly enough, you'll have a pile of manuscript paper on your desk. It'll be 300-400 pages that you can send off to somebody, right, and get made into a book. So I actually wanted to ask Kashif. I was curious because I always ask people this.
Vikram Bilal is Bilal.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really bad at names.
I can tell now.
Yeah. Millie's talked with me a couple of times. I'm always forgetting names. I've actually, I tell my students on the first day of class that this entire semester I will keep forgetting your names and saying, "Oh, you over there," right? And then also that whenever I get really excited, this is the best short story ever published, and then I won't remember the name of the short story or the author. So I tell them, okay, I'll email you after class, right? So Bilal, I wanted to ask you, so like in that beginning and now, what is your schedule? Do you have a schedule? How do you work it?
So actually, my schedule has always been similar to what the pandemic has made everyone do, which is work at night, sleep through the day. But so actually, it's there's no fixed schedule as such. It's just that when I find those 2 hours, 3 hours that I'm feeling like working is when I just start and try to cut myself off from the rest of the family, which is another story. But usually that happens in the nights, when there's like a lot of and it's more easier to just pace around the room and work or think at least without getting interrupted. So that's my schedule mostly, and my family obviously doesn't like it because I wake up at 3 in the afternoon after working through the night. But I get a lot of work done around like 1 to 4, or 4 to 8 nowadays. So it's quite a mixed. Every day is a new schedule, at least because of the pandemic now. But I feel I'm the most active during those hours, and that's actually also sometime that's actually the time when Hussein is also quite active. So whenever I call him at 3 or 4, he readily picks up within the first ring, and it's really great because then right in the middle of my writing, suddenly if I need some question answered, I know who to call because I know he'll be awake, and it doesn't have to be put off to the next day.
We have become 3 a.m. friends now.
And Hussein sir has
We meet at 3 a.m. at night. Yeah.
So not now, in fact, since 2015.
Yeah.
And you would joke about how you would have to take my name out loud so that at home they know you're talking to me and not anyone else.
So that my wife should not be suspicious who I'm talking to.
Wow. Yeah. So I think everybody has their own methods to write.
Are you saying something?
No, I'm just saying, what is your preferable schedule? Do you prefer certain time?
In an ideal world, I like to write in the mornings. So have breakfast, show up at my desk, and then write for 3 hours, right? But also I have this is another thing I tell my students, have a daily word target, right? So what I do is I want to write 400 words a day, and which is actually not that much. It's a little over 1.5 double space pages of type. But that exhausts me, which is also why it takes me 10 years to write a book, because I go at a snail's pace. But for the last 3.5 years, ever since we started this Granthika project, startup life is completely insane, right? Anybody tells you anything about starting a startup, think 10 times. It's much worse than trying to start a novel because it'll eat up your life. So it has become really intermittent, but now that we've released our first version, it's become a little easier. And I'm writing in Granthika now, so I'm always also doing double duty. I serve as a tester, right? So if I find a bug, I file the bug in our bug tracking system. But that's what I try and do, like 5-6 days a week, every morning when I have the time, for 3 hours or 400 words. If I reach 400 words, even if it's half an hour, then I knock off. Then it feels like a holiday, right? Free time. But I think the important.
And if you feel like exceeding 400,
I stop myself. Okay. Because for me that doesn't work. To me it feels like it's more like a marathon than a sprint, right? So keeping a steady, even pace, month after month, year after year, that's the important thing, right? Because if you overextend yourself on one day, what I found with myself, then for the next 3 days, I'm like baffled. I don't know what. And I actually learned this from reading Ernest Hemingway's non-fiction writing about writing. He had this thing about setting a daily word target, stopping at the place where you knew what the next sentence was, but not the one after.
Yes, I read that.
So I took that from him.
Interesting. Bilal, so a lot of tips for all of us, readers, writers. Hussain, would you like to share a bit about your writing process before we end the discussion?
I think it's quite a long discussion. Maybe we should end it here, otherwise
No, not ending before you share your secrets as well. We need your secrets too. Please spill the beans.
It is not much different from what Vikram and Bilal has suggested. It is like some of what Vikram has suggested and some what Bilal has suggested. But I am not a very disciplined writer, as both of them are. That if Vikram is writing in the morning and Bilal is writing at night, I write in a very different way, and I'm more of an instinctive guy. I would like to collect all the details, all the research material, all the information, and then I will write 10,000 words at a stretch, even if it takes, say, sitting for 7 hours, 8 hours, and then I may not write a single word for the next 10 days. So, but I know that there is a certain quota, there is a certain sequence, there is a certain routine that I'm supposed to follow, but I can't follow the discipline of word count. As Vikram said, he can't exceed 400 words. I don't know, I've never been, because as a journalist, we came up with a very ajib or very weird kind of training. Sometimes we have to file 4 stories in a day, which could be 2,000 words. And for days, we have those stories to file. So that has kind of inculcated a discipline in us that we will be productive and creative when we need it. We are needed to be productive and creative. And we can chill and relax when there is not much pressure on our head to do that. So that's all. There's no secret. There's, I think, only the internal compulsions and pressure that we face as a journalist.
So you can really sort of control the way you write and deliver. Wow. Well, thank you all of you for being here today. Congratulations to you, Bilal, again on your new book.
Thank you so much. Okay. Should I show it again?
Yes.
I'll show it again.
I'm here to receive a copy, otherwise even I have to show my copy on the screen. So.
Yes, I think your copy will reach you soon, Hussain. And we would like to see a picture of you with the copy. We will send a copy to you as well, Vikram. I hope you also read and you like it.
No, I've read it, but I'm such a geek. I read everything on my tablet, right? So I got a Kindle copy as soon as it released, and I read it. So, yeah, and I read it. Everyone should read it.
Thank you for reading it.
Thanks, Vikram. All right. Thank you again. You have a great day and a great evening. Bilal, I'm sure you'll be off to write. And Hussain, wish you all the good luck for your new book. Keep writing. I hope we get to read many more books from all 3 of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for doing this. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.